Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm absolutely excited for you to meet Alina Timofeeva. Alina is a multi-award winning principal at Oliver Wyman, which is a global strategy consulting firm, having previously worked at KPMG and Accenture. She progressed very, very quickly in less than 7 years from graduate analyst to a principal. Now, day to day, Alina consults major financial services organizations on the topics of technology and innovation. And she volunteers as a mentor to women and migrants from diverse cultural and social backgrounds. Alina is here today for us to explore the concept of failure, something that many of us struggle with and often do our very, very best to avoid. And this is also the topic of her highly watched TEDx talk titled Fail But Never Give Up. Alina, it is absolutely a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Farah. Thanks a lot.
So, I would love to hear, if you're willing to share with our listeners, a little bit about your background, kind of a little bit around your roots, from there to the amazing place that you are at now in your career and in your life. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't always very successful and I did fail quite a lot of times, which I did talk a lot in my TED talk. But in a nutshell, I'm originally from Russia. So I was born in the 90s when there was quite a lot of mafia in Russia. And I was sitting in the most mafia related kind of area of Russia. So I didn't really have like a lot of role models or anything. And my grandmother who brought me up, she was a housewife. Everybody in my family was a housewife. Everybody around my family was a housewife if they were a woman. And my grandmother was also like not educated. So what she felt is, my journey is to get married, have kids, maybe do something part-time, like be a tutor of English. So I started studying English quite early. But I guess she never saw me that, having an independence, having a job, having a career, having, some success in that career. And that was some sort of a, let's say, limiting mindset, which I didn't know at the time was limiting. But it was limiting in a way when I was getting brought up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so, what's it like to be in that environment where it's like the people that are around you, your caregivers, have a certain image of what, they want you to be or what success is like? Like, how did you know that you had a different path?
So to answer your question, I didn't necessarily know. So I went more from the misery to like, this is something which I want to avoid. This is why I need to go to the other direction. But the difficulty was I didn't actually know what the other direction was. So just to give you an example, I had a TV. I had like 3 channels on TV. And I never saw, those foreign movies or like the foreign, I've never traveled abroad. So I didn't actually know, this is how life can be or this is how life can be. So it was very unusual in my head. I didn't have like this storyboard, like let's have a Barbie in a house in a Vogue magazine, etc. Because I didn't have magazines. I didn't have like real like toys or like dolls or anything. And I just was going from the misery. So I was coming from the point that I don't want to be like this. Maybe there is something better. I don't know what this better is, but that was how I was thinking. And probably I didn't start thinking like this, when I was bored. Probably it evolved throughout the time.
So that's really cool because I think a lot of people that are kind of moving towards something, oftentimes are actually moving away from something that they don't want. So they might not really know yet what they want in their career, what they want in life, but they know what they don't want. And that already gives some clarity, right? Because when you know what you don't want, at least you're a little bit closer to how you do want to feel or what you want to experience in your life. And then you begin to become a little explorer and to notice what that would be like. So share with us a little bit kind of around those early years, like what what were some of the milestones in your life that let you know that you can do something different than being a housewife, for example?
Well, to be honest, when I was 4, and that's not a known story. So when I was 4, I thought I'll be a housewife, but I'll marry a millionaire. So I'm going to be a millionaire wife. I'm going to travel the world, whatever the world is, because I've never seen it. But I'm going to have my house and my servants, and that's what I'm going to do. Then I kind of came to the conclusion, logically probably, that there are not enough millionaires for me to marry. And there is probably a higher chance of me actually going and doing something myself. So, I mean, the milestones really, I went to a school, like a normal school. I was pretty good at school. I wasn't very sociable or like leader specific, but I was quite good in terms of marks. So the first success I remember is that they accepted me to school when I was 5, which is quite young because other people go at 7. And they said like, oh, you already know how to read and write and count. So actually you could maybe progress like a bit quicker. And I could have potentially finished school by around 14. But I think my grandmother was like, if you are so young, people won't find you sociable. Like they won't want to socialize, so you won't be able to understand the mindset. But I remember that flattered me when I came to the little school and they said, yeah, you can do it. So that was like the first thing. And then, I mean, I was good at school. I went then to a special math school because I won an Olympiad, Moscow Olympiad in maths. So that was good. And I was actually the only kid in that particular class who was not a child of a professor of maths or didn't have like some sort of relatives in maths in their like history. And that was a school to help different people get into like our best university in maths, like the people that get scientists in the end. So that went well ultimately because they seemed to like me. I mean, maybe they didn't like me, but I was like one of the 2 girls there, so they seemed to like me. And then an interesting thing happened. So my grandmother said, yeah, you can go to the best university in Russia, but the idea really is you're going to find a husband because the ratio of guys to girls is 10-1. So there's a very high probability that you're going to get married and you're going to get married young. And that's the best place for you to be. And I did a bachelor, I didn't get married. I did a master's, I didn't get married. And then I did like another master's, but I didn't get married. Anyway, I mean, my personal story was that I was just getting too miserable, right? So to give you a perspective, my first job was 50 pence an hour and I was washing floors in McDonald's, right? So I was 16, I was washing floors. And that seemed like a good idea at the time, because to be honest, one of the reasons it was McDonald's and not KFC or something else was because up till 18, you can only get a job washing floors in McDonald's. You can't wash floors somewhere else. You can't be a waitress. It's very funny. So I was washing these floors, right? And I wanted to do something better. Like I got to doing fries, so that was okay. I managed to burn myself very badly while I was doing fries, so I decided I need to move on. But the thing is, I didn't talk well at the time, so like they didn't offer me a job of Happy Meal thing or like a job at the cash saying hello everyone. So the next step was the burger. Like, and the burger, I messed the burger and I didn't pass the burger thingy. So I remember that I was sitting in a cafe. Well, there is like a little room in McDonald's because there is an office of the director who heads this McDonald's, and it's a very small room of this director because he has some sort of essence, I guess, or some sort of significance. And he was talking to me and he was like, just think about it. So today you're washing floors, now you progress to fries. Well, you didn't make burgers, but that's okay. But think in 10 years, you're going to be the director of McDonald's. Just like me, you'll have this little office. And then you know what? You're going to be even bigger because you're going to be the director of 2 McDonald's and 3 McDonald's. Just think about all the possibilities. And the thing is, he was like, I started even worse. I didn't even wash floors as a start. I was working at night and I was like carrying like the fries, the frozen fries, basically, which are like 20 kilos. Anyway, so the point of the story is, you know, I get through failures as a normal person. I do get frustrated. So I don't have any specific mantra, which is like, I close my eyes, I breathe, and I'm like, no, that's okay. I do get frustrated.
So I'm curious, like, from the vantage point where you now are, right? multi-award winning, right?
Yeah.
Very, what many of us would consider a very successful person, also in the lens of giving back. Yes. As you look back on those years, what are some of the gifts of those years or the resources that you gained that have helped you kind of post 18 years old? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I thought at the time, or I used to work for like very cheap, to be very honest, right? And in a way, that experience has helped me in different ways. Like, number one, actually value the labor or the work of the other people, because you never know. Today you're a waitress, tomorrow you're a multi-awarded person. Number two, I mean, I didn't have like the best confidence, to be very honest, because I definitely didn't think that I'll be multi-awarding. I mean, personally, I didn't even think I'll be in UK. I'll have a job and I'll be multi-awarding, and I'll be, just to give you an example, now I do more like consulting for the CEOs of global banks, right? There is no way I thought about it when I was in McDonald's. And I think if they watch my TED Talk, probably they'll be shocked. And then look at my age now as well. Anyway, so the lesson was really, there are different opportunities. You go for opportunities. You try to get out, some sort of a lesson, right? I mean, for me, the lesson at the time in this waitress situation, I learned to do some customer service, right? I became a little bit more chilled, less shy, and I could pass better on something which is more softer skills. I also learned to sell a little bit, right? So now I sell like $1 million deals. At the time I was selling $2 coffee. But I mean, there is a little bit of a correlation. I think if I didn't do it when I was 17, maybe I may not be doing it now when I'm 30. So
Cool. So I'm curious, what was it that kind of was the door that opened to come to the UK and experience a brand new home?
yeah, I mean, it was a bit complicated. From one point of view, I did still want to get married because it was in my thingy. And the challenge I experienced is I had this vision that marriage is the end of life. That's the bliss. So you get to this bliss and this is it, right? So you wed for 20 years. You've been a good person. You've done degrees. You've done the hard job of your marks. And now that's it. And you're going to get married and that's wonderful. So anyway, so I got this guy and we lived together, but we were so miserable with each other. Like we were shouting and like continuously quarreling. So then I got like very, very sad. And then I thought, no, this is not it. This is not the bliss I was waiting for 20 years. And then basically I thought, okay, like there wasn't a particular thing that it has to be UK or it has to be something else. I just knew English. So I applied to very many, many jobs in UK. And my challenge was that, number one, I didn't know anybody. Number two, I never have done all these tests or assessment centers or interviews. Even forget about English. I haven't done them like generally. So I didn't really clearly understand what is it I'm going to do. And I clearly didn't understand, okay, even if I got this job, whatever that job is, how am I going to do it? How am I going to fly there? Am I going to live somewhere? Am I going to know somebody? So that was a lot of ambiguity in terms of what is UK? Why should I go there? And what happened is I got very many rejections. So I applied 500 jobs. I applied to some companies like 2-3 times. I applied to all these e-financial career companies. And the challenge is when you apply, it's not as simple as you saying, hello, I'm Alina, here's my application. You have to actually fill in all the questions. Why is it this company? And specifically you right now. And what are you going to add? And I had to change it for all these companies because they were different. And another problem was I need a visa. And Russia is a little bit hard because it's not Europe. So I can't just get on a job. So essentially the criteria is if people in UK are first of all able to hire people on a visa and have the spaces to do so and are willing to do so for these graduate jobs, they should showcase that they couldn't find anybody with my skill set in Europe and UK. And to be honest, it's very hard. Like it's very hard just for like some random girl in Russia to do this. I mean, it's just a small chance. To be honest, I don't know anybody who's done this. But the idea was like, I was very interested whether this is even possible. And everybody told me, no, it's not possible because you don't know anybody. And why are you doing this? And this is all like unusual. Stay, be married, and that's it. And I was getting too many rejections. And to be honest, I was very frustrated with the volume of rejections. I was very frustrated, in particular, when you don't get rejected in the very start, but you actually do all the efforts and then you get rejected in the last thing. That's when I was very frustrated. But I kind of had, like, I came to the realization that I have spent so much money already and time and effort getting rejected. Now I need to do something.
So, what advice do you have for people who are along their own journey, right? Maybe they're at the place where they are applying to jobs and getting the rejections, or maybe they're at the place where they want the relationship and they don't quite have it yet, or it's not the right fit. What advice do you have for them from, again, your current perspective around how to overcome those setbacks?
I mean, realistically, again, I'm not going to preach the mantra that you will get the bliss in the end. It's always like a journey, right? And again, you may get to one milestone, second milestone, third milestone, and you may want to do another 10 things after, and it will be more failures and more challenges. So it never seems to end. It's like this vicious circle. Like the more you live, the more failures you get, but then you kind of survive and you move to the next set of failures. Because I had lots of failures when I moved to UK. But I think the idea really for me is it is a journey. You don't know what's going to come. You don't know, are you going to be successful on day 1, on day 2, on day 5, or maybe in 1 year. And some people, I found I was really jealous of those people that maybe have found jobs after 2 interviews. I unfortunately didn't do that. Like for some reason, I couldn't get that. And I was, as a normal human being, I was questioning, am I good enough? Am I, is there something wrong? Is it because of the circumstances? Is it because I'm Russian, because I'm a woman, because whatever it is, right? And you have this little voice in your head, which is like this doubt. And the doubt is, there is always doubt. There is doubt whether you are good enough, or you may pass, or maybe they didn't like you, or maybe something else. And the problem with this doubt is the more doubting you have, the more voice you have in your head, and it keeps saying and saying whatever it is. Like one of the worst things which happened to me, and it still happens to me from time to time, is this overthinking. Because you had a bad interview, then you start thinking, oh, I had a bad interview, oh, this is what happened, and then I should have said this, and maybe I should have said this, and maybe I should have said this, and then you just are in this continuous cycle of thinking how miserable you are. And the problem with that is you just get chased in your own misery, and then you just can't sleep, and you have pain in your head, etc., etc. So my advice, really, it is a journey. You don't know when it comes to a milestone. You can't, like, unless you really are really very good in planning, you cannot predict everything what's going to happen, because I've seen even when I plan or other people plan, it still fails. And what's very funny is now I'm very, very good in helping banks remediate stuff, because by the time when people got to the point when they are already really fed up with everything what's happening, then comes my mindset of the journey. So I think that's kind of my key takeaway. And I think the second thing is you keep trying, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Sometimes you think that it's a failure, but actually you learn something. Like, for example, I learned, so in my, I think after my 497th decline, somebody called me from PwC and said, Alina, we are the HR from PwC and we want to give you some feedback. And I was so impressed because nobody called me before to give me feedback the first 497 times. And they were like, so you came and you didn't look at this person and you didn't look at that person and you didn't like write your notes at that point and you didn't do this and didn't do that. And I'm like, oh, finally somebody explained me what I was doing wrong the first 497 times. And then what was funny is that all my job interviews after that, which were like 3 interviews, I passed straight away. But the problem is I only came to this feedback on 497th time and not on the first one. So unless I would have gotten through this whole misery, I would probably have never gotten to this feedback. And it kind of helped me because I learned, well, something about soft skills. And I guess I got a job, which was the outcome at that particular milestone.
This is really, really cool because, and we know from others, right? Many, many others that have kind of had a similar path, right? Like, Jack Canfield, who wrote the book, I don't know if you're familiar, Chicken Soup for the Soul. I remember he once mentioned that he got 144 rejections, right? Or J.K. Rowling, right? With Harry Potter, I think she got 12 rejections from publishers. And so the idea here is that failures come. We can expect some failures as we continue to evolve and grow. Yes, if we're going out of our comfort zone, some stuff will come up. Things may not go according to our plans. And so as we continue to evolve, right, and failures come, when we're ready, we get those learnings, right? Whether it comes from a conversation from a PwC recruiter or hiring manager, or it comes from, something else, but we get those resources, the tools or the learnings. And then when we go on with our journey, right, we've got one more tool in our backpack, so to speak, yes, as we continue to climb. And so I think it's really cool that you were persistent. Yes. I mean, there was such a like a strong energy in you to continue the path, right? And at some point it was like, I've already spent so much.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily have the thing which is very important is at that point in time, I didn't think like that. I didn't think, oh, I'm energized. I want to do another 20 interviews and get rejected another 20 times. So it's like, oh my God, when is this misery going to finish?
Which is brilliant because a lot of people listening right now, Alina, as I imagine are right there. So they're hearing our words. They're not quite there in that state yet. But the idea here is that there is hope, yeah, for those people that are in the mud, in the struggle, in the frustration, to continue the path, to get feedback, maybe even ask for feedback if they can get it, adapt, and then get better results, right? And remember that every step along the journey, whether we're mopping floors in McDonald's or whether we are a shy waitress at a restaurant or anything else along the path, that's there for a reason, right? There's some skill or something for us to fine tune or at least begin to strengthen that will serve us at some point down the line. So when things look kind of bleak and we might not quite see the optimistic lens yet, there's something really powerful about your story because you didn't give up. You're still not giving up, right? You even said you're still struggling at times, right? Not everything is always perfect. As you mentor these individuals that are from these backgrounds that are, a little bit harsh, what do you find is most helpful for those individuals to overcome like the diversity, right? Like starting from being so different, maybe feeling like they don't fit in, they don't belong. What's important there?
I would probably say the first thing you need to convince is yourself. Because, say, when I was in Russia, I never thought that I don't fit in. Like, I knew that I wanted a different background. I knew that maybe I didn't have money, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. But I kind of fitted in roughly in the culture because I was obviously born there. But then when I came to UK, I clearly felt that I don't fit in. Just as a story, I think on day 2, they came to talk about benefits. And my first question was, do you pay maternity leave? And they said, yes. And I'm like, if I have 2 kids, are you going to pay double or are you going to just if I get twins? No, if I get twins, do I get paid double? Or because in Russia, I get paid double and you don't pay double here? And that was pretty much my question in front of 100 other analysts on my day 2. But anyway, the point which I'm making is there is a lot of diversity, and the diversity can be in different ways, right? It may not necessarily be a racial diversity or, poor background or like gender. It may be just a diversity that you think differently. And when you think differently, you still may think that you don't fit in, and you may not fit in because like 100 other people think differently. So there are these different kind of levels of diversity. But the biggest challenge for me when I couldn't fit in is my confidence, because I clearly started questioning, okay, so I spent my 500 interviews, I turned up here, and now again, something's wrong, right? And I didn't have very good confidence. I clearly didn't fit in for different reasons, partially because I didn't speak the right way and I asked stupid questions and I kept saying, this is how I do in Russia, and nobody seemed to care about it. But the biggest thing was it affected my confidence. And the second biggest thing was that the employer didn't actually know how to deal with diversity at the time. I mean, that was 7 years ago, but the idea was I was the only person out of 100 people who was not a British person. And I was the only person on this visa. And I was like, they genuinely haven't seen people like me necessarily in this cohort, right? So coming back to what I meant to people on, the first person you need to convince that you're worthy and that you belong and that you fit in is yourself, right? And the main way how you can do it is just having this belief in your head that even if somebody else is different from you for whatever reason, say they went to Cambridge, they went to Harvard, they, I don't know, they have $1 million, they have rich parents, they have whatever they have, they're still the same person. Like they are the person, they have the same struggles as you, they are a normal human being. So there is nothing, absolutely nothing, which is, sets you apart from them. There is nothing special about them. Like maybe they look differently, maybe they are very beautiful or whatever it is, but there is nothing, something extraordinary that you can't match for whatever reason you can't match. And that gives you the confidence. And what happened to myself, and one of the reasons I progressed a little bit quicker, was when I came to UK, for example, they show you all these senior people and they say, like, this is a managing director and he went to Oxford and he's been here for 25 years and he is an expert in blockchain and AI and everything else. And I used to look at these people and be like, oh my God, he went to Oxford, 25 years of experience, blockchain and AI. Oh my God, what an extraordinary person. And I mean, I didn't come to them to ask for an autograph, but I was kind of along the same lines, right? And then somebody came to me after about a year and said, you know what? Managers don't actually know anything. They just manage stuff, right? There is nothing which they know, which you can't know. And then I was like, really? I never thought about it. And then I went for an interview and the advice was like, just believe that you are a manager, even though you are an analyst. And I went to an interview and I got a manager role, even though I was like an analyst in the previous job. And for that, it was just like this mindset that actually, as long as you perceive yourself, or you can, convince yourself that there is no difference between you and the manager, or you are a managing director, you are capable of doing this. Because how other people see you and how you see yourself is a little bit different. Like you can be very confident yourself internally, but other people may be like, you are, I don't know, very outstanding. And you never know this till you try.
Beautiful lessons, really important lessons, right? We gotta do the work to convince ourselves, right? To remind ourselves that the illusion that we are different than others is not really true, and to remind ourselves, that we can learn and grow and do that thing that we want to do, even if we're not there yet. Yeah, it's just a matter of time and practice and perhaps receiving mentoring or coaching or support or what?
Convincing yourself.
Exactly. Because the moment that we release our own self-doubt, then we're essentially radiating a different energy out there. And when we do that, then it's helping other people believe in us, to trust us, to not doubt us. And then they're much more likely to get the impulse to hire us, to give us that chance. And then, of course, we need to do the work and and prove to ourselves and others that we can, in fact, do it through behavior. So, one more question here for those individuals that maybe have had some evidence in their past that they're not good enough. Like maybe they heard it from somebody, or maybe, that's really conditioned into them. Yes, like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, which is a program that's there for a lot of people. What other, as you kind of look back at your life and where you are right now, like what do you think can soothe that, those mindsets even more?
So I'll tell you probably my story, because I was told very many times that I'm not worthy or there is something wrong with me. And what was most offensive was that it was not like, the people in the streets who I don't necessarily care about. It was like the people in my family or my boyfriend. So you may not believe it, but I used to have a boyfriend who used to tell me I'm very ugly. So for 6 months, he kept telling me I'm really ugly. And then well, I mean, my experience with this was I genuinely used to listen to this. Like I used to listen for like 6 months that I'm ugly. Like, and I didn't question it. I didn't, like stand up to myself, and I didn't like say, oh my God, why are you telling me this? Right. Or walk out. But then I reached the point when I was so frustrated, I guess, both internally and externally and physically and mentally, that I came to the point when I just couldn't take this, I don't know, like frustration or pain anymore. And then I kind of walked out. And then when I came to UK, I started doing modeling, and people were like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, so beautiful. But I think, so the advice really, there is no like, one of the challenges with this is when it is encrusted in your head. I mean, there is this story that's actually slightly different. So, there is Buddha, right? And there was a guy who came to Buddha 2,500 years ago and started, yelling at him and saying how worthless Buddha is, right? And Buddha said that when you give a present to other people and they choose like not to accept it, who still keeps the present? And the guy was like, well, the person who brought the present. And Buddha said was like, so I'm not going to receive it. So you can shout at me as much as you want, but I'm not receiving it. So all the anger actually stays with you. Now, it is more like of a wisdom thing. I practically do want to say that when people shout at you and tell you are worthless, it's very hard mentally to, even if you are very resilient and very, it's still, you still get a doubt in your head, and it's bigger and bigger, in particular if somebody who you care about tells you this, and it's really practically hard. And I know it just because it was very hard for me. And the other reason which was hard for me is because I didn't have the confidence to say anything. And the other reason, I really didn't know whether I'm worthy or I'm not worthy, and whether I should believe this person because he's, my closest relative, and whether, and the closest relative would always say, I'm telling you this because I'm your closest relative. Nobody else would tell you the truth. That's why I'm telling you, you're not worthy of it. So it's very, very hard, right? So, I mean, I can teach you the wisdom that you don't accept it. I mean, I can tell you that practically it's very, very hard. Like, even if you try to decline it, you still have like a trace of something. And there is like psychology which tries to take it out of you after like 20 years. And it's still very, very hard. I mean, my experience was to still, like, the only person who can help you is yourself. And the only person who can help your confidence is yourself. I mean, there are the services which are like, counseling and mentoring and psychologists, and they kind of help. But deep inside, the only person who can convince you is yourself. And however much I or somebody else can tell you that, no, you belong and you fit in, unless you yourself believe that you belong and you fit in, you will never feel that you belong and you fit in. So I guess just to summarize, because I talked a lot, like, try internally to see, how you can move on. Because the worst thing, as I mentioned earlier, is to be in this hinderers mindset, which is the vicious circle that, I'm worthless. 10 people told me I'm worthless. That's why I'm worthless. Plus, I think I'm worthless. That's why everybody thinks I'm worthless. And it just never helps. And I myself do have this mindset even still, even though I'm multi-awarding person. But I mean, I try to really convince myself, this is the bottom I reached. I can't be in this bottom. I need to kind of move on. And I don't know how I'm going to move on, but I'm going to move on. And then it helps. Well, at least in my case, it helps me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that that imposter syndrome, if you will, feeling, some aspect, if it's dimmed down, of not good enough, all of that, it's something that we want to accept, in the sense to accept that voice when it comes up, to listen to it, yes, to be present to it, and then to give ourselves evidence to the contrary, right? So to focus instead on how we want to think and how we want to feel. But there's something very compassionate about just being present with those little parts of us, like the little kiddos in us, and to just kind of listen to them, maybe soothe them a little bit, and then to focus on what we want, and to give ourselves evidence, like we have achieved things. We absolutely can. And as we look back on our life, we can see the gift. Sometimes our boyfriends or girlfriends or grandparents or whoever it is that said or did those things, they kind of helped us in a way, because they gave us clarity, about what we want to think and feel instead, right? So they kind of gave us momentum to grow and to challenge ourselves and to take risks, and all that, kind of evolution. So there is a place for all of those uh, guides in our life. We just need to remember who we really are. And who we really are is this, you know, self, this true self that is believing in ourselves, that is confident, that is loving, that is compassionate, that is curious, that is forgiving, right? Courageous, creative, right? All of that. And that's what we want to, kind of inspire in ourselves, as much as we can. So thank you, Alina. It is such a delight to just get such an authentic, real perspective, around all of this, because oftentimes very successful people are like, oh yeah, now I'm here. Yeah, I was there, but now I'm here and everything is great. And the reality is not like that, because we continue to evolve. And I'm so grateful for you reminding us that no matter how, wonderful our successes have been, how rapidly we move through the things that we want to move through, that it is a process, and we're human, and our humanity is our vulnerability with ourselves and with others. And so I thank you. I thank you for inspiring me, and I imagine many, many people today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So how can people learn more about you? Of course, they can find your TEDx talk. How can they reach out?
Yeah, so the main thing for me, which I use, is LinkedIn. So it's just my name and surname, and you can write to me there, or I just post some stories. Some of them are more specific to my job, but some of them are more like this mentoring and like some motivation. So I try to do it because just as you said, there are so many people, leaders in the industry, but they never show the vulnerability. So it's like this managing director who was bringing as an example, it's like the stoic, and you think he was born like this, right? And you never necessarily know what he went through, and what he may be going through now. And until you know that everybody is vulnerable and everybody goes through something, no matter how senior they are or how confident they look, unless you actually notice that that is the reality, the more distance you become between yourself and where perhaps you want to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you once again for your time. I know it's late night for you in London. Thank you so much for giving from your heart for all of us. And I wish you continued success and continued fulfillment and continued growth.
Thanks a lot, Erin.